Hey, what's up, guys and gals and AI bots? It is just about 9 p.m. here, Central Standard Time. For those that know the drill, go ahead and zip to about a minute 10, minute 15-ish, and we will dive in. For those that don't know what's going on, my name is Nick Kleitch. I am the creator of the Life with Nick YouTube channel and the host of the Life with Nick podcast. Just to give you a quick template on me and what the heck you're seeing. So I read and teach a personal development book a month. Sometimes they are fiction as well as nonfiction, but for now we're focusing on more of a nonfiction orientation. And then also I do a podcast a month with a everyday person. I like to give voice to everyday people because I am one, and I think that there's a lot of very cool and interesting and entertaining people out there. So if those two pieces to the pie are something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button so that way you can get updated with new information. If it's not for you, totally understandable. Don't want to waste your time because time is valuable at the end of the day. So for the continuation of the book of the month, we are reading the 5 major pieces of the life puzzle by Jim Rohn. This will be a playlist, so you can go back and kind of hit the intro to go on through. But without further ado, we will enter back into where we left off into part 2 of the first piece of the puzzle, which is personal philosophy. So I will get settled in here and we will continue to chip away. So in this specific video, as I have alluded to, I put a lot more emphasis on the writing portion here, so I'm not going to be as animated as what I have been in the past with other book reads, but I really want to drive home just some of the reading pieces here because there's some really good stuff, and Jim just wrote an incredible book. So we have discussed how personal philosophy is formed over time, how personal philosophy is implemented into our lives, and the main threat to our personal philosophy, the danger of neglect. What a great place to start. We have successfully laid down the first of 3 bricks to our foundation, which of the 5 major pieces of the life puzzle. It is time to lay the second brick in that foundation, referring to personal philosophy. What is that second brick, you may ask? The second brick is called how to develop a powerful personal philosophy. Let's back up a bit prior to engaging in this, though. Knowing that everyone has a personal philosophy and that it gets formed over time, and considering this concept of how it gets implemented into our lives, this should generate some thoughts of, interesting, I didn't even know I had a personal philosophy, or I'm curious what my personal philosophy is. Is there a way to build and renew how I set my sail? All of these thoughts are highly positive, and with these thoughts, I'd like to propose a thought process. Generally speaking, we grow throughout our early childhood through roughly the age of 25. In this time, we physically grow, mentally evolve, and other types of growth. Yet when we hit a certain point, we feel as if we have a good grasp on how the world works. As Jim stated earlier, this is how our personal philosophy sail is being constructed. Most people aren't aware that they even have a sail to begin with, so to begin to introduce to this point is a huge place to start. The most exciting element to the story and thought is this: regardless of how well or poorly you built the sail, at any point in life, we can restart and build a new sail. How awesome is that, right? Just to really kind of contemplate and imagine how awesome that is, that at any moment we can completely wipe it all off, start anew, and change the direction of our life. That should be really freaking exciting for people listening. Could you imagine if we had to stick with our current sail forever? That is a scary idea to me, because if I built a poor sail, which I had for most of my life, not terrible, but poor, it means we are completely hopeless moving into the future. With this next portion of the video, I will be detailing through Jim's concepts the highly useful topic of how to develop the powerful personal philosophy. So let's dive in. The greatest influence on what we decide to do with tomorrow's opportunity is how and what we think. The process of learning plays such a major role in not only determining our personal philosophy, but how we view opportunities and execute on ideas and skill development. One issue that we run into is that our personal philosophy can actually block us from future achievements. As I stated earlier, we aren't able to choose how we got brought into this world and who raised us, so there's a chance that we received incorrect information about how we set our sail. Quick pause. So for that literal kind of short-term line, I just want to kind of point that out. Sorry, the phone was at 20% battery life, so we'll make it through this. But yeah, so we could have received incorrect information up until this point. There's a high chance of that, right? So we have to acknowledge that there's a chance that we had the wrong information to begin with. This can be a difficult truth to deal with, especially if we love our parents and caretakers. However, it also proves the importance of consistently trying to obtain new information as we get older, so we can constantly examine the raw materials we use and are using to rebuild our sail. So not only do we have a chance to rebuild it, but there's a high likelihood, depending on who your parents or caretakers are, that not necessarily incorrect, but maybe their lives are different, right? When we get to adulthood, that's when we can really kind of equal the playing field of what we want to do compared to what they have accomplished. All right. We begin the rebuilding process by objectively reviewing our personal philosophy. What has worked for us? What has not worked for us? Am I happy with where I am in life? Is there more to life? Am I living up to my potential? All these questions help us be objective towards reviewing our personal philosophy. All of our counterproductive beliefs and choices are the results of accumulated misinformation. Said another way, we have simply been around the wrong information and sources. There's a good probability of that. Actually, the decision we have been making, whether positive or negative, could be on spot with the information we have, yet the information is not correct to begin with, then we could be traveling further away from our intended goal. So I just want to drive that point home before we get to the first pillar, because we actually could be maximizing the result of what we have to begin with. So that's a productive thing, right? Yet that information to begin with may be incorrect. And that's why this whole kind of concept of developing this and knowing it can be developed, all of that is so critical, because we need to self-analyze at different points in our life as we're looking to develop a better future. The first pillar we're going to be taking a look at has already been kind of hinted at already, but to drive the nail home, we will now discuss the importance of new information. So this is the first tactic into how to develop a personal philosophy. Unless we change what we know, we will continue to believe, decide, and act in a manner contrary to our best interest. Getting the information that success and happiness require and getting it accurately is mandatory. The question then becomes, where do we get this new and accurate information? It's a great question, right? The first place is reading all the books. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of this because I'm a big reader, and I hope you are too. But if we're just kind of getting into the reading game, the first place we can really start making an implement is the reading of the books. Books have been around for centuries. Documents from all of our ancestors have served us since the beginning of time. How amazing is it that we can learn from people who walked the earth generations and centuries before us? They've lived their lives, some successfully, some unsuccessfully, yet they've done us a favor of documenting their experiences. I cannot just emphasize how critical that is. We can choose to leverage this information to our advantage to make better decisions about the future. So let's work smarter, not harder, right? There are other people that have already probably done the things we're wanting to do or have explored the areas we want to explore. And so we don't need to completely just fall in love with them, right? But we do need to just very quickly and efficiently read about what they have to say. That's the real beauty of the world, and podcasting can fall into this as well too, just in today's world. But just to continue forth. So the first place, reading all the books. People, people from all walks of life, people with the most incredible life experience, people have gone through, people who have gone from pennies to fortune, who have invented incredible things from failure to success. They have all hand gifted us guides on how to reset our sail. So that's just kind of a point from me about reading books. All walks of life, most incredible life experiences, from rags to riches, from pennies to fortunes, who have invented incredible things. For some reason, Amelia Earhart is coming to my mind here. So like, just for the ladies out there, like I think of her right away, like how cool, if she has an autobiography or biography that we can learn from how she had the confidence and the courage to do what she did, just as an example. All the information we need to be successful in this life has already been written. We simply need to be aware and actively reading on the topics that both interest us and are important to learn. So there's a caveat there. We can read things that we're interested in, which is great. However, we also need to be mindful of what's important to learn as well. Those who are serious seekers of personal development must remove their self-imposed limitations that they have placed on their reading skills and their reading habits. We're calling out people as far as the habit of reading here, which is good. Reading is mandatory for those who seek to rise above the ordinary. A little reading each day compounds into a wealth of knowledge, yet if we don't read, ignorance begins to set its way in whether we like it or not. So a lot taken in there from specifically just reading books and getting new information to develop our personal philosophy. But the number one, in my opinion, is this, because not only is reading daily healthy, reading for only 10 minutes daily is extremely healthy. And if we can just do that, the amount of reading that you can do in a year is unbelievable. And I'll say this from personal experience too. When I started off, I was very eager, ambitious, and hungry to just kind of learn a lot. So I was reading probably 20 to 30 minutes a day. And if you even just do 10 to 20 minutes a day, you can read 12 books in a year, and those 12 books could completely open your mind to new information. So I say a book a month. That might seem like a lot, but if you're just literally reading 10 to 20 minutes a day, you're going to easily get through a 300-page book in a month. It's all about consistency, and then you'll fall in love. The habit of reading is a major stepping stone in the development of a sound philosophical foundation. To end with a quote from Mark Twain, and this is the one I have on my website: "The man or woman who does not read is no better than the man or woman who cannot read." Ponder that for a moment. I added this point in. This is the second point for new information, and I had mentioned it a little bit, but listening to podcasts. Nearly all successful people in the world have begun their own podcast or have been interviewed on podcasts. Be cautious of who is credible and who is not, but apply the same principles from the book section into this section, and you can completely elevate your life. So if you hate reading, fine, like whatever. I tried to talk you into it. If you don't want to do it, that's totally understandable. However, take the next alternative, and that is getting on these authors' podcasts and listening to one a day, one a week, and really trying to grasp all this stuff. Like, it's just the wealth of information to change your life is all around us. The last point on the importance of new information is that new information leads to creative energy as well. New ideas and thoughts can be brewed in your subconscious mind and generate ideas that could end up aiding you in making a fortune. So that is more of a caveat of both of these things, is that it could generate creative ideas that could make you a millionaire. Who knows? The second pillar we'll touch on is learning. This is just in general learning. So we have reading, books, and getting new information in, podcast, and then we also have learning outside of this. Thankfully, we're not the only ones going about life alone. We can observe the world around us. We can also gather new information that can help us live better lives. Who and what can be learned from? And this is a colon. So I believe there's 4 here on this. So the first is personal experience, examining ourselves from prior experiences that resulted in both success and failure. If we look hard enough, our lives are full of rich information that can be recalled and used for the future. Number 2, outside voices. We can all use a little bit of coaching. There is great value in someone who can provide an objective viewpoint on ourselves. We should never run from both the best sides of ourselves and the worst side, yet the only way to obtain this perspective is through coaching. Why is that important? Because others can see things we may not be able to see ourselves. We may only, or this is an analogy I put in here, we may only see the trees when others can see a forest. Meaning your perspective dictates a lot of action because of what you see, but yet these people are around you and they can just see you in a different light. So I'm just going to throw this in here and be very straightforward with you guys. Sometimes you got to kind of freaking sack up a little bit and take in some positive, take in some negative, and fuel that as a way to just not only know yourself more, know your blind spots, but just to really understand your strengths and weaknesses. And that's the process of getting better right there in a nutshell. Number 3. Other people's experiences with failure and success. Because so many people have walked the earth before us, many of the paths we desire to take in life have already been walked and paved by someone who is either currently existing or has existed. You can handicap yourself if you don't seek counsel from others who are further along the journey than we are. Although we should all desire to forge our own path in our own unique way, it would be a waste of time to do this all by ourselves. The wise people of this world seek aid of others who have both succeeded and failed, so that we may use the experience when forging our own path and walking down a path we desire to walk. This is just so good. For example, in my own life, seeking out someone who's about 10 to 15 years your senior, and going to them and saying, hey, I see what you've done that's successful. I want to learn from you. I want to talk to you. I want to interview you, start a podcast with you, whatever you want to do. But there's so much value in just gaining perspective from other people. And all it takes is a request. People love to talk about themselves, myself included. So if you ask the right couple questions, they'll give you everything you need to know. We will end this with a quote. Second pillar is on learning, personal experience, outside voices, and other people's experiences with failure and success. If we ignore the lessons of the past, referring to people that have come before us or who are currently ahead of us, from whatever the source, then we may become victims of the process of trial and error. By ignoring the lessons of history, our own trials will become inevitable and our own effort will ultimately destroy us. This is saying, basically, if you're not intelligent enough to use these resources, you could spend a whole lifetime trying to dig and do something that somebody may have already done and can give you a manual to do it more efficiently in a better way. So just really kind of contemplate that. I will say for men, set the ego aside a little bit to know that there's probably some other man and or woman that has done it better than you at this point. Use that as a way to get yourself introduced to things, and then on top of that, then formulate your own personal touch. When we're young in life, we really have to set our ego aside to say, okay, everyone that has already lived and everyone that is currently ahead of us probably has a better kind of viewpoint on things and a better actions, better habits, and all this stuff, and have mastered these things. So we need to just immediately begin to learn and develop and grow from their practices and protocols. And then all the while, as we're doing that, we can then put our own spin on things. So if you think you can conquer the world as a young man can, sometimes myself included, that's not the best strategy. The third pillar we'll learn about today are strategies we can use to maximize the process of obtaining information. So this is where we will hammer on a couple things that will help us learn, and also help us with the input of new information. Okay, there's 4 of them, I believe. 3 and 4. Okay, and then we'll get concluded here because this is a little bit of a longer chapter, but we're sizzling through it. Strategy number 1 is capitalize on the power of positive influence. Each of us should be in constant search of people who we admire and respect, people whom we can pattern part of our behavior off of. The key is to find unique human beings whose personalities and achievements stimulate, fascinate, and inspire us, then strive to assimilate their best qualities. Great projects are always built from a pattern or a blueprint. In this lifetime, there's no greater project than the deliberate development of our own lives. Therefore, we need a pattern to follow. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but it could be a mentorship group. It could be I'm forgetting the name of a mastermind. Yeah, it could be a mastermind of people. But again, people that we respect, admire, and that their life, we're like, damn, they got something with them that I want to learn, that I want to get on. Those are the people we need to talk to. Those are the people we need to bring value to so we can learn how to live a better life because they're obviously doing something right. Strategy number 2, one of my personal favorites. Become a great observer. So much can be absorbed. So much can be absorbed by observing successful people. If one really pays attention, they begin to notice actions, thoughts, habits, and routines of successful people. And with this, one should try out these observations in their own lives. Not everything will be for us, which is a caveat, but there are some things that will be absolute game changers. We must become good observers and astute evaluators of all that is going on around us. One of the major reasons why people are not doing well is because they simply are trying to make it through the day. We must become sensitive enough to observe and ponder what is happening around us. Often, the most extraordinary opportunities are hidden among the seemingly insignificant events of life. So, if you can get around positive people, that's the first step, right? But the second with that is observe them, learn from them, note take from them. All of that is so good. Number 3. And this one is arguably also my favorite. and that is become an unbelievable listener. If there is nothing else you take away from this video or this whole book, but this strategy, your life will improve dramatically. One of the greatest attributes of leadership is effective communication, and learning what to say comes only when we have learned how to listen. Let me break that down one more time. One of the greatest attributes of leadership is effective communication, and learning what to say only when we have learned how to listen first. The art of listening is an opportunity to add knowledge and increase our value. The process of speaking, on the other hand, is the act of putting on display all or little we have learned. We must first master the art of listening before our spoken words will have any great value to others. I love that so much. There are degrees of listening that must be addressed. The first level is merely becoming aware of your surroundings. The second level is paying attention to somebody else or something else, likely other humans, but our world as well. Then when we apply this level of listening, we are present, not fully engaged, but we're present. The third level of listening is listening presently and actively. This would be described as a normal human conversation. We listen to what someone says, we look to reply back. If we're good at this level, we can truly connect with people we care about and strangers alike. The fourth and last level is seeking to fully understand what the person is trying to say and then putting ourselves fully in their shoes, to almost experience what they experienced with them firsthand on what they went through on any given day or experience. So much information can be obtained by asking good questions and applying the fourth level of listening skills. Yet it is the most rare because so often we are quick to want to comment or reply with our own opinion. Great maturity is depth in listening. Boom. I will drop the mic on that. Go back, listen to that little sub portion, because being a great listener is a literal game changer in your life. When so many programs are calling for our attention these days, we must somewhat be selective to what we listen to. Selective listening is like turning on a radio to find the station that most appeals to us. Everything we hear is being recorded in our mental computers and forming a new connection in our brain. The discipline we need to cultivate is the power to tune out the bullshit and really tune into the truths and the facts of life that will help us reach our goals. That rounds out number 3. Number 4, and this ties everything together. This will be a little bit taboo just because this practice itself is not as popular as what it once was. But before we get that, just to kind of round out things here. So strategy number 1, capitalize on power of positive influence. Number 2, become a great observer. Number 3, unbelievable listener. And that is under the strategy of being able to improve our learning and processing of new information coming in. Strategy number 4, to round everything out. 10% left on my phone battery, so this is perfect timing. We'll drive this baby home. Strategy number 4 is keeping a personal journal. In our continuing search for knowledge and understanding, there is another major discipline that will help us capture the information around us so that our future will be better than the past. Keeping a personal journal. A journal is a gathering place for all of our observations and discoveries about life. It is our own handwritten transcript, narrated in our own words, which captures the experiences, ideas, desires, and conclusions about people and events that have touched us in our lives. So before I go into the benefits of journaling, you can find journals all over the place. There's some blank page journals where you can just write on your own. There are many other journals that prompt you with questions, but the very act, and especially for men, the very act of taking 3 to 10 to 20 minutes to write, either in the morning, in the noon hour, or at the end of the day, this is almost as critical as reading. I would say very close number 2. I would say 1A is reading, 1B is journaling. But even though it's uncomfortable, I would strongly recommend going out and getting a journal and writing in that as often as possible. Back to the benefits. And for the ladies, of course, you do this as well. You're just a little bit more in tune with your emotions. So First, it allows us to capture all the aspects of the present moment for future review. The powerful events, both big and small, that take place in our lives should not just happen. We must record them so we can exact the lessons that they are teaching us for years to come. The past, when documented properly, is one of the best guides for making good decisions today, and that will lead us to the better future. We may try to learn on our memory and recall amazing events, yet it doesn't have the clarity of capturing emotions and feelings that a journal may provide. Essentially, you put it down, you can refer to it later with clarity, which is great. Number 2, the very act of writing in our lives and events that happens helps us think more objectively about our actions. Writing tends to slow down the flow of information. As we pause and gather our thoughts about an event we're trying to capture, we have time to ponder and analyze the experience. We begin to see more clearly the sources of our information and the facts in which we base this decision, and the action we are taking in response to our belief. After we have written, we can then process our thoughts and analyze them to refine our beliefs about said event, whether positive or negative. So it helps us think more clearly, which is a huge thing. Lastly, third, the discipline of keeping a journal also develops our ability to communicate more effectively. The more we practice capturing events and emotions with words, the more clearly we are able to communicate not only our ideas, but also the inherent value that exists within us. So if I had more time and more battery, I apologize. I'd go back and reiterate some of these pieces, but I want to make sure that you guys have everything within this kind of short-term piece. I will end with this. To conclude this video on a slightly motivational note, and it's from the book. Surely our lives are worth more than a birth certificate and $500,000 in consumed goods and services compressed between major milestones. Journals are the tools that enable us to document the details of the failures as well as the progress of our existence. This allows us to become more than we ever thought possible. We cannot become a stronger nation until our attention to the essentials of life begin to change. That is why each of us must make the commitment to develop into our full human potential. One discipline at a time, one book at a time, one small journal entry at a time. Only through the personal philosophy can we change not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. Beautiful. We will continue to read into Personal Philosophy Part 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Go back and take your time to process everything. Cheers.